The state of South Africa's science, technology and innovation will be the focus of the annual National Advisory Council on Innovation Symposium, which takes place tomorrow in Pretoria. To talk more about this, I'm joined in studio now by my guest, Dr Mlungisi Cele, Acting CEO of the NACI, the National Advisory Council on Innovation. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mpho. Thank you. Good morning to your viewers.
We've heard President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking about advancing and skilling young people and saying that there are many initiatives in the pipeline. Yeah. You have a symposium coming up focusing on this South African science, technology and innovation, putting it under the spotlight. Yeah. What are some of your highlights? I know that a report's also been drafted. What are some of the highlights in that report?
Thank you very much. I think it's, well, I'll get back to your question. It's important to indicate that the report looks at few indicators that we monitor over a year and then publish the results. There are few highlights, but maybe let me highlight three. One, the report indicates that as a country, we are falling behind other comparative countries in terms of our ability to compete globally. This is found in our global economic competitive index as well as innovation index. I mean, part of the reason is that our firms are not innovative as much as they should. Secondly, the investment in R&D by business has been in decline for a few years. And that has an impact, as I said, in terms of their ability to compete globally. Mm-hmm. But secondly, the report highlights that if you look at our ability to generate knowledge as a country, we are doing well. We rank amongst the best in the world. However, we fall short in terms of translating such knowledge into useful products or outputs, whether in terms of solving social problems, developing new technologies that can be transformed. Thirdly, we remain challenged in terms of human resources. In other words, despite the fact that over time we have seen more students graduating with PhDs, but that number, if we compare with the rest of the comparative countries, it's falling short. So we still need to do a lot to have more young people doing science, maths at schools, at schooling level, and then completing with results above 60%, and then enrolling at universities. And then, of course, as you said, the president is quite clear, and we embrace the vision of the president in driving the fourth industrial revolution. And I say, so we need more young people to enroll in areas like ICT, engineering, science and technology, in order to take advantage of the opportunities presented by fourth industrial revolution. But we also need to highlight, as the report does, that if you look at how the country is investing, both government and the private sector, in research and development, government set a target of 1.5 growth expenditure on R&D as a percentage of GDP, which was supposed to be realized in 2019. We're nowhere near that target. We're actually at 0.8, which highlights a serious challenge for the country. So we are saying that on the one hand, if that vision that the president has highlighted were to be realized, we will encourage all sectors of society to increase their investment, because it's important to build the relevant infrastructure, to develop people that can take advantage of the opportunities presented. But also, we've looked at the areas that are necessary for us to move to the next level. For in those areas that are related to 4IR, we're relatively doing well in terms of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. But in other areas like engineering, mathematics, we need to do more to improve.
You speak about one of the aspects in the report being trying to solve social problems using technology. Yeah. And we've heard the government officials speaking about introducing coding and data analytics at primary school level. Yeah. When it comes to ensuring that intervention, How far are we in terms of translating it now into primary school level and ensuring that the passion is built from youth?
Yeah. Look, I think government is on the right track because we need to encourage actually most young people to be excited in these programs, coding as you correctly articulated. But that has to be done within the broader approach of changing the way we teach. For instance, you know, in the past we used to emphasize science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. But now we need to infuse arts. Right, so because that's the direction, that's where we are going. Now, what this report, our report is saying is that, yes, let's invest in developing capabilities of young people from schooling, teaching them these skills that they would need in future. But in society, in general, if you want to address societal challenges, there are a lot of innovations that are found in townships, in villages, in various forms, but such innovations are not yet integrated into the mainstream. And we are saying that as part of us moving forward, we need to find ways of harnessing those innovations that are generated by communities, by marginalized communities, into the mainstream where they can, those who want to commercialize such technologies can utilize, those who want to use such technologies for public good can do so. So it then begs the question, or it says that the broader government approach, which the new white paper on science and technology and innovation is promoting, is that we need to take a much broader approach to innovation. By the way, let me just add as well that even in terms of improving how government functions, innovation can play a role. And there are few examples to demonstrate that. In terms of addressing service delivery protest, municipalities can benefit a lot by deploying some existing innovations, you know, to solve some of the problems that people are confronted with at local government level. So there are opportunities, but it's how those opportunities can be created, harnessed, and how to create access, especially for marginalized communities, to existing technologies, and then make the necessary support mechanisms available.
I'm quite excited to hear you speak about infusing art in these innovations and science and technology. I mean, just to think of science is quite daunting for a very artistic person, but merging them and infusing them really speaks to perhaps a lot of young people who may be watching. What are the options? I mean, you speak about advancing rural communities and social aspects that can utilize the science and technology. Give us some examples.
Look, the number one, I'm not so sure how many people know that rooibos tea is a South African product, right? You have the indigenous knowledge systems in South Africa, and it's huge. We generally view indigenous knowledge systems in terms of traditional healers, Zangoma, and so forth. And yet there is a lot that can be, the moringa tea, for instance, and other products. Those are the products that have been derived as a consequence of harnessing innovation and integrating, using innovation to make sure that IKS is supported. There are a range of other examples that can be provided. But as you were saying earlier on about infusing arts with mathematics, science, engineering, some schools have begun to do that, but they have also, the problem is having teachers who are trained to think in their fashion, where that integration becomes natural in their teaching. So what we are encouraging schools and then, of course, policymakers to do is to make sure that across the schooling system, that type of thinking is encouraged. And then the teacher development must as well include the element where what used to be STEM is now called STEM. You know, you shift from STEM to STEM in a much more dynamic way, because the problems that manifest in society are no longer in the way that we used to establish, but also the impact of fourth industrial revolution on humans as we move forward will necessitate that our artistic elements, our humane dimension, will need to be tapped into. So in that fashion, you need to be able to find ways of making sure that human beings are able to interact and interface with technological development in a way that is not destructive, but also empowering to them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Mlungisi Cele. Just really speaking about the excitement of infusing arts into science and technology and innovation. Really speaking here about the state of South African science, innovation and technology, placing it under the spotlight.